So there's a lot happening around clean energy, and a lot of it is happening at the subnational level. What I mean by that is that national governments around the world, not just this particular government in the United States, simply don't have the political will to do what's necessary to have effective climate mitigation. But at the subnational level, we're talking about regions and states and cities, corporations, they have come together both in the United States and around the world to sort of combine their efforts. And that's a good thing because most of our carbon emissions are coming in local places like our largest cities. Like 75% of our carbon emissions come from the 50 largest cities in the world. And so if those cities are doing their part, you can have a real impact on climate mitigation. And decisions are easier to be made at the local level than the national level, where there's more responsiveness and more accountability to the people that put you in office. So again, at the corporate level, let's just start with companies. You know, companies are seeing our largest companies, whether it's Google or Facebook, Microsoft, even Walmart. These are companies that recognize that they can become sustainable, that they can introduce sustainable practices in renewable energy and lower their costs. They're all interested in climate mitigation, but ultimately they're interested in larger profit margins. And one of the things that you hear business people say that are on board with this is that renewable energy and sustainable practices is the biggest business opportunity of the 21st century. And we're starting to understand that. Companies are starting to understand that more and more, that this is not a negative, that it's actually a positive, that it helps their businesses, it inspires their workforce, it contributes to a healthier environment locally. It's like a win all the way across the board. And it's feeding new economies like the construction of renewable energy and solar panels and wind turbines. You know, some of them we're doing, you know, completing the Greenway and making it easier for people to bike to work is a big deal. You know, the LED lighting that has been passed with bond issues, there's some in this neighborhood here in Westerwood, but it's also going in all over downtown. These are things that, again, are lowering costs while they're helping to improve the environment. You know, one of the biggest things that we can do as individuals, and whether we can do it at a city level or not, is just what we choose to eat. And it's something that I'm coming to understand more and more, that eating beef is one of the biggest impacts on climate because cows are one of the largest producers of methane, and there's a lot of deforestation that takes place in order to do ranching. As our diets change and as we eat less beef, there are fewer cows. And in this country, we're actually seeing that impact. Beef consumption is down like 20% over the last 15 years. And it's been the equivalent of taking like 4 million cars off the highway. Just in deciding to not go vegetarian, but just eat like one less hamburger a week. All of us. Like this has got to be a collective. And what we're seeing now is that politicians, when we just had an election, you know, did anybody talk about climate change in this past election? And if they did, do we hear about it? This is the most pressing issue facing mankind, bar none. If we don't solve climate change, all other issues go away. And all the signs and signals are that it's getting worse at a rapid level. And so we need to escalate our efforts at every level. Like everybody needs to be involved. We're not going to get everybody, but this is not just for one leader or one government or one group of people. We all have a role to play, and there are roles that we can all play. It's totally political. I want to be really clear about this. We have politicized a dire scientific reality, and we've got to stop. Like the science is clear, and so the biggest obstacle right now is misinformation, lack of political will, and you know, there isn't a nice way to say this: ignorance of how dire the problem is. That's such a great question because it's your future, you know? Like, this is the planet that we're going to give you. This is not my quote that I'm going to give you. I've heard other people say it. We were the first generation to understand the gravity of climate change and the last one to be able to do something about it. And you have to do something about it. Like, young people have to push for this. They've got to be involved. They've got to run for office. They've got to vote. And they need to make sure that this is something that gets talked about. And right now, like, we're not talking about it. But the thing that I want to add is, the more you learn about climate change, the more depressed you can become. And we can only take so much bad news. Like, this is a world that's filled with bad news right now. The fact of the matter is, there are lots of exciting, innovative things that are happening. Like, Bill Gates has put $1 billion on the table for innovation in climate mitigation, and people are rushing to grab that money with their new ideas. There are countries that are doing things. Our own country has peaked its carbon emissions. Like, that's good. We are weaning ourselves off coal. There are lots and lots of really exciting things that are happening, and we need to embrace those things. The reality is, we need to do more. We haven't bent the carbon emissions curve yet, which means our temperatures continue to warm year after year, even though we're making progress. But we are making progress. And the more people that get behind this effort, the more people understand that the impact is at the local level and at the state level in businesses, the quicker we can get to having the solutions that we need.